Which brings us to the end of the week of silence from many Indigenous leaders. The Prime Minister will, of course, conveniently be out of the country where we know, according to his rules, you can't ask him any questions about what happens domestically. So it's perfectly timed that all of the criticism of the way the campaign was run and the anger that some have at the result of going from 60-40 yes to 60-40 no is now going to play out while he's, of course, completely away and you can't ask him any questions about it. Buy the T-shirt. Well, plenty of people now, of course, are continuing their sook more than a week on, and I thought we'd move on from the sook, but there's still plenty there. Racists and elites, yes and no voters are not who you think they are. See, they're now trying to turn around and say that it's the polling results at the different booths rather than the result that really matters. Well, if that's the case, then Labor would have an even lower vote than the 33% that got them to the election result that meant they were able to get over the line, Greens preferences and form the government. Laura Tingle, you pay her over there at the ABC, and she's linked The Voice and the Middle East war as the truth being one of the casualties of war. Thomas Mayo, the man who, of course, had plenty to say about how radical he wanted it to be, well, he wrote an interesting piece in the Saturday paper, one of the leftiest publications in the country, where he says, among other things, to my fellow Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, I say we continue our push for common goals. Don't be silenced, be louder, prouder and more defiant. Of course you will be. The survival of our culture and babies depends on it. Meantime, land councils, they too have blasted the No campaign and, by extension, the majority of the country that decided to vote no as racists. Meantime, there was, of course, the group that have got together and have put together the first draft of their official response, and that is more of the collective Indigenous leadership that was behind the Yes campaign. It was leaked to the Sydney Morning Herald and The Age. I read from them. It says the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people were hurting and bewildered by what they feel is the viciousness of the repudiation of our peoples and the rejection of our efforts to pursue reconciliation in good faith. This is their response to a democratic election. The truth is that the majority of Australians have committed a shameful act, whether knowingly or not, and there is nothing positive that can be interpreted from it. Only the shameless could say that there is no shame in this outcome. Their statement continues to say. They haven't locked off whether that is the official position. We'll learn it all in the next couple of days. And I mentioned it before, but it's worth saying again. What's the M word that the Prime Minister and the Yes campaign have thrown around for the information they didn't want you to read on the internet?
It's misinformation.
Misinformation.
The misinformation.
The misinformation.
Misinformation.
Well, of course, the plan for that is to censor the internet. Now, I'm not cool with people finding ways to spread racism or hate. I'm not okay with people telling outright lies. I'm not okay with defamation. I'm not okay with discrimination. But misinformation is this term that is used for the things of which they disagree with. Remember, it was misinformation about masks. It was misinformation about the Wuhan lab. How many other things have been labelled misinformation? But of course, you knew them to be true at the time. It's just only months after they're not needed anymore that you're allowed to say them. Don't fall for their language on this. Albanese and his mates are trying to censor the internet. They are trying to censor your ability to share the content that you see in places like Sky News, like the media that they don't like. Because they can't say it's a lie, they can't say it's discrimination, they can't say it is defamation, they just call it misinformation. And if they want to make it illegal for you to be able to see it, then that is censoring the internet.